Hi everyone, I'm Sandie La Nae. Welcome to Psychic Creations History Series. You are about to embark on a blast to the past. We have a very interesting program for you today as we feature the historic accounts of Annie H. Martin, the first woman to head a U.S. Treasury Facility. Portraying Annie Martin is Chautauqua performer Cindy Southerland. Thank you. Welcome,
Thank
Cindy
you. Thank
and
you for
Annie.
having us today.
This is going to be a very fun show. What an honor. Well, now, if you would, Annie, could you please tell our viewers about yourself and your place in history?
Yes, I would be happy to. Thank you so much. Well, as I've been introduced, my name is Annie Hudnall Martin, and I actually came across the plains with my family in about 1863. We came from Missouri in a wagon train. Now, we were quite concerned about being attacked by Indians, but it never happened. And we came this way because my father, Charles Martin, had been appointed by President Lincoln to be the Deputy Secretary of the Treasury under Orion Clemens. And so we needed to relocate to Carson City in Utah Territory, of course, in those days. Well, we arrived about 1863, and I've lived in Carson City all my life. I became a school teacher when I was quite young, and I actually taught the first kindergarten class in the state of Nevada. I worked for Hannah Clapp. You may have heard of Mrs. Clapp, of Miss Clapp. Yes, and she's famous, of course, for putting the iron fence around the Capitol grounds. She was quite a woman. I really admired her. So I did that for about 17 years. I was a teacher. And then I decided I was ready to move on to a different career. And so I became a newspaper editor and owner, bought the Carson Morning News, and I ran it for 3 years. Now that paper, I must say, was decidedly Republican in tone.
Okay, all right.
And I supported a great many things, and Republican candidates, of course, gave them fair coverage in my newspaper, but I was decidedly anti-suffrage.
Oh,
And
you were?
And I did receive a lot of, feedback on that from my readers that just couldn't understand why a woman of my position in the community would be against women voting. But I did tell them in one editorial, because the women in Austin, Nevada, have you ever been there?
I have not had the pleasure.
It's quite an interesting town. But the women there decided that they were going to form an equal suffrage league. And I knew it would only be a matter of time before the sistren of the state would decide they had to have that right to vote. And I wrote an editorial in my paper, and I said, ladies, if you would only listen to me, and you would discover that politics is a dirty business. Women should not be sullying themselves in the trenches of politics and running for office and things of that nature. And as a matter of fact, the political field would be better off in every way if women would leave politics to the sterner sex. Now, of course, times changed over a period of years, and now, of course, women have the right to vote. And, it was quite an exciting time. I finally sold the paper in about 1895.
Okay.
And I moved on. In about 1907, I applied for a position at the Carson assay office. It used to be the U.S. Mint. They used to coin there. And that stopped in about 1893.
Oh, okay.
So I was given the position as a clerk at the assay office. And then I was promoted to assistant clerk. And in 1921, I had the distinct honor of being appointed by President Warren G. Harding as the first female superintendent of a U.S. assay office in America. Isn't that wonderful? And my annual salary, I'm still employed there to this day, and my annual salary is now over $2,000 a year.
Oh, that's an exorbitant amount.
I can live on it. But I'm also raising a great nephew, and my brother lives with me because he's fallen on hard times.
Oh, sure.
But there's always been some discussion, too, about people confusing me with the other Anne Martin. You may have heard of her. She was a suffragist, and she actually ran for the Senate, the U.S. Senate, to represent the state of Nevada. She actually ran 2 times and lost.
Oh.
But there was always a little bit of competition in the newspapers of the day to try and set the record straight.
Right, exactly.
Because it was very important to me that people knew I was Annie Hudnall Martin, and it was Miss Martin. That was by choice, not of necessity. I may add.
Okay.
I never married, but I had quite an exciting life. And as I said, right now I'm raising my great-nephew, Ken Plummer, and we do all sorts of wonderful activities. We go to the movies a lot. We love the movies. We hunt, we fish. We've even tried horseback riding a few times, and it's just been a pleasure raising that young man. My niece, his mother, had passed away after the flu epidemic came through. But now, would you like to know what I do at the Mint?
I would love to know what you do at the Mint.
Well, my duties there are strictly administrative in duty. They're strictly administrative in responsibility.
Okay.
And I do supervise 2 men. We have a maintenance janitor man, and then we have the actual assayer who does the weighing of the bullion that does still come in. But my job is very important. I'm responsible to make sure the budget is followed and adhered to.
Okay.
I handle all of the correspondence. I order the supplies. I make sure specifically, very importantly, that the bullion receipts are accurately recorded and maintained. And I am responsible for sending those bullion receipts to the San Francisco Mint.
Oh, are you?
So it's quite a responsibility.
It is. It is.
As a matter of fact, just a year ago, I had to pay out of my own pocket over $500 to make up for a shortage of bullion that had been discovered during an audit. And as the superintendent, it fell on me to pay that back. So I understand that Senator Keith Pittman has a bill before Congress to reimburse me for that. So I'm hoping that that will pass, so I will get reimbursed, because that is a substantial sum of money. But it's been a wonderful life. I've kept very active. I have played the organ for my church, the Presbyterian Church in Carson City, for almost 40 years now.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. How wonderful.
It's quite exciting. And I grew up with the Mint and the Virginia and Truckee Railroad shops. I knew, of course, Mark Twain.
You did.
Old family friends from Missouri. So I have a lot of wonderful memories.
Oh, you do.
Yes, I really do. It's been a grand life. And that's what I have to share with you. As being, I became the first female superintendent of a Mint long before some of the other women that are usually mentioned that had that position. But I'm very honored by that.
Well, I can see why. How long were you in that station?
Well, I'm still there. It's been about 7 years now.
7 years
1921 till now, 1928.
1928. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating? Oh, what an honor, and what a nice accomplishment and achievement for, well, just your life, your personal life.
Well, and for a woman in that day and age, and never marrying and never having to rely on a man to take care of me. And I had my share of beaus. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy male companionship, but it seemed like they were always, some of them died, some of them went to war. Some of them married other people. And I have a feeling part of it could have been because I was so strong, and perhaps that inner strength was just too much for the man to bear.
I can understand that for that era of time.
Yes.
Yes. What wonderful accomplishments.
Thank you.
And what other activities have you done throughout your life?
Well, one thing I really very much enjoyed since I was a young child, actually, was performing with the Carson City Drama Club. We would put on plays and musicals, all kinds of entertainment at the Carson Opera House. For years and years we did that. And one thing that's brought me a great deal of pleasure has been putting together little performances to go and visit the prisoners at the Nevada State Prison.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yes.
okay.
And I've even brought my nephew with me a couple of times and had him join us and sing a song and play the guitar and things like that. And I wanted to do it because I wanted to bring a little sunshine into their dark existence.
That's true.
And I must say it's been very rewarding.
Aw.
Because just a few years ago they gifted me with a beautiful shawl that some of the prisoners had created for me. And at some point they had given me a set of silver, a complete set of silver. And I still have those, and they're very treasured mementos that I have.
Well, sure.
Yes, and it was very, and I understand that several of the prisoners, once they were released, still remember me. I have received letters from them.
Oh, is that
So,
right?
yes, it's been very, very warm to my heart.
Well, I can
Yes.
see why.
Yes.
Oh, that's a different accomplishment for you, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And they forged the silver right there with your sets.
I'm not sure where the silver came from.
Oh, okay.
They did not reveal that.
Oh,
But I hope it was
by legal means.
by legal means. It was acquired by legal means.
Right.
I'm sure it
Well, now
was.
that's very interesting.
Yes.
What a treasure, both the shawl and the silver
Mhm.
set for you.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Now, there is one other thing.
Oh, I'd
that
love to hear.
just 2 years ago, I believe, my nephew and I, Ken and I, took the train, the Virginia and Truckee Railroad. I never drove,
Oh,
but
okay.
we had wagons and things like that, but we took the train into Reno to see Charles Lindbergh. He flew into the Reno landing strip in the Spirit of St. Louis airplane to
Oh.
talk to the community. And it was a wonderful experience to see that plane flying over the Sierras and landing, and then actually to hear him speak to the crowd.
Is that
It's
right?
something I'll never forget. It was wonderful.
That's fascinating.
Yes, it was very exciting.
Oh my gosh, what a fun day, and especially for your nephew to
Yes.
see that kind of history going on.
Very educational for him.
Oh, how
Yes.
long did Lindbergh speak?
He spoke about a half an hour,
Mhm.
and then he stayed a little bit longer during the day and spoke with the airport officials
Mhm.
about could they really turn Reno into a proper airport, because
Oh.
those were the early days of aviation,
Mhm.
and it was a rather small strip.
Mhm.
So I'm still not sure if it will ever really happen.
Isn't that interesting? Well, you have had a very fun life.
Yes,
Ed.
I have.
Oh, I like it.
been wonderful.
Oh, nice. Well, can you tell us more about the anti-suffrage article and your feelings about that?
I would be happy to.
Okay.
Thank you. I always like to take the opportunity. Now, I want you to remember I did give pro-suffrage women equal coverage in my newspaper.
Okay.
But my stance was being anti-suffrage. I believed a woman's place really was in the home,
Mhm.
taking care of their family and their husband and being there. And I thought that we could influence politics and law easier from being in the home base than actually being out in
okay.
the environment.
Mhm.
But I want to share with you a letter that I received. Received a letter from a woman in Virginia City.
Mhm.
And she wrote it to me, and she said, "Dear editress," addressing me as the editor of the newspaper, "Dear editress, I think that if you ever married a man, and one day you were talking with him and he just simply reached out and he slapped you, and he struck you for no reason that you knew of, and when you said, why would you strike me? And he said to you, because you are my wife, you are my property, I own you, and you will do as I say," and that is the end of that. Then I think you would see the need for women to have the right to vote. And I thought about that, and it didn't take me long to come up with my answer. And I said, "Dear madam, if I ever had the misfortune to meet and marry a man of the character you have just described, and he struck me for no reason and said the things to me that he said, I would not look to the ballot box for redress. A broom handle would suffice." And that took care of the matter.
I love your reply. That was
Thank you.
absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. I think she got the message.
I think she did too. Well, Annie, thank you so very much for your position in our historic annals of Northern Nevada. Now, Cindy Southerland, when did you become interested in history and particularly about Annie H. Martin?
Well, it was in the early 1990s, and I took a women's history class from Jean Ford. And Jean wanted all of her students to find an interesting woman in Nevada history and research them, study them, and then you had to stand and perform in front of the class as that person.
Okay.
A lot of the ladies were very reluctant to do that, but I guess I've always been a little bit of a, show off.
Yeah.
So I wanted somebody really unique, and everyone was picking the standard women of the time, lots of, like Hannah Clapp and other people. And I discovered Annie H. Martin, who was anti-suffrage. Yeah, she had a brilliant career. She was very successful in life and did so many things, but it was the anti-suffrage question that really drew me to her.
Sure. Okay.
And so that's how I became interested in Annie.
Isn't that interesting? How long did it take for you to research her?
Probably a year or two. She's one of the issues with women in Nevada history is there still is not very much written about them. I mean, we know the historic characters and ladies we do know, but there's a lot of the everyday people, and it's very difficult to find information. So it was a challenge to really dig her out of the archives.
Oh, I'm sure. Did you go to historical societies?
I went to the Nevada Historical Society and the museum, and I finally lucked upon some written material. And actually, when I had the opportunity to meet and talk with Annie's great-nephew, Ken Plummer, when I met him, he was 92 years old, and he had kept everything that Annie had ever done. She had scrapbooks, she had photo albums, she had letters. She loved movies and plays. She had playbills from every theater she'd ever gone to. And she had written her own autobiography at least 3 times.
Oh, okay.
And without finding that archive that he had, it would have been more and more difficult for me to really find the information on Annie. So I was really very fortunate.
Is he still in the Carson City area?
He's passed.
Oh, he is now. Okay.
Yes.
Was he when you discovered him and found all of his wonderful artifacts?
Yes, he was living in Carson City, not too far from me, as a matter of fact.
Is that right? I could edit that. Let me say that over again. Okay. Let me see. Ken was his name?
Yes.
Okay. And was Ken, at the time that you met him, was he living in Carson, or did you have to travel to
He
see?
was living in Carson City,
Was
pretty
he?
close to my house, so it was an easy commute.
Oh,
Yeah.
isn't that interesting?
It was. It is. He was a wonderful man.
Oh.
Very interesting man.
Do you still have any of the letters, documents, or artifacts from Anne?
He wanted to give them to me, and I told him that they belonged to the state of Nevada.
Oh.
That to memorialize her correctly, they should go. So they're now housed at the State Museum.
Is that right? Well, we'll all have to go and see those, won't
Yes.
we? How interesting. That's very, very interesting. Now, what inspired you to portray Annie Martin in different venues? You do go out and present Annie Martin,
Yes.
portray her?
Yes. I think I wanted to get her story out, tell her message, and it's always fun it's almost like doing a debate. Because here I am, a successful woman on my own nature, and I'm portraying someone and saying her own words. Those stories I told you and those words I spoke were actually her words that she wrote.
Oh, okay.
So, so I'm actually voicing her opinion that it might not be the same as mine.
Right, okay.
So that's always an exciting adventure.
Oh,
to
exactly.
take.
Do you go to schools or things like that and portray her?
Usually I've done Annie in front of different organizations and clubs. I performed at Dangberg Ranch twice, the State Museum, places like that.
Oh, nice. I'm sure you really like to let people know about Annie.
I do. I do.
All right. Well, if you could, being this show's theme is psychic creations, do you feel that the spirit of Annie in your research and or in your portrayals of her, like today, do you think that she's with you right now?
Yes, I do.
Do you
I
feel
do.
her?
I've always felt that.
Mhm.
And I think I felt her drawing me to her when I was looking for a woman to really research.
Oh.
Because I would say, well, I really want someone who's different.
Right.
You know, not just the normal people. I want somebody who has some specific thing, and being anti-suffrage really was something. And then when I really started researching, or before I go and do a performance, I will say, come on, Annie, be with me while I'm doing this. So yeah, I do.
Nice. That's very nice. Well, now, your beautiful outfit
Thank you.
here, this, what era is this?
This would be about late 1800s, almost into the 1890s.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Because the sleeves are starting to change and get a little more billowy
Oh,
in the shoulder.
I see. Okay. How beautiful.
Thank
Did you
you.
make this outfit?
No, this was actually made by a company in Wyoming who makes
Oh.
historic reproduction clothing.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Oh, well, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
They just, is this like right off the rack, or did they fit it to you?
They fit it to you.
Mhm.
You give your measurements,
Mhm.
and then they create the costumes to fit.
Well, it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
And you wear this, I'm sure, when you go and
Yes.
portray it. Different.
I have
venues.
different costumes. I have 3 different costumes.
Oh.
To portray Annie in.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh,
it's
how
fun.
fun! I'm sure she loves the new costumes.
I
too.
think she does. She feels very proud of this. I have a photograph of her. She's about 21 years of age, and she
Uh-huh.
has a top on very similar to this, a shirtwaist.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's very interesting.
Yes.
The most fun event that you portrayed Annie at?
Oh, I would have to say last year at Dangberg Ranch.
Oh.
I had a special costume made for the 1920s era.
Oh.
When she, of course, was working at the assay office.
Mhm.
And it's a kind of a modified flapper because she was an older woman by then. I didn't want something really risque.
Okay.
But it was nice and lacy and had a handkerchief hem, and I got to wear that wonderful hat, those cloche hats.
Oh, that's what they're
Yes,
called. Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
So that had to be, and then that was the first time I had done the broomstick presentation.
Oh,
And it was wonderful to get the crowd's reaction to
right.
that. You know, whoa, she has a broomstick in her hand. So that was
is
very
fun.
special.
Well, as we are wrapping things up, how long did Annie Martin live on this earth?
She passed away in 1928, February of 1928, at the age of 71.
Mm-hmm.
And she was getting ready for work one morning and had a stroke. And they say that she passed away before she basically hit the floor.
Is that right?
Yes. Yes, and her young nephew, Ken, who was 14 at the time, found her,
Mhm.
and she had already passed.
Mhm.
So she didn't have to suffer.
Oh,
But she was
okay.
71 years of age, getting ready to go to work at the assay office that morning, and
Isn't that so? I'm just going to ask you that. She
Yep.
never retired.
never retired.
Isn't
No.
that fun?
Yeah.
I like that. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, can you please give our viewers your contact information so they can hire you to come portray Annie?
Okay, what should I give, my phone number or my
Whatever you
email?
feel like. Email, if you have a website, Facebook, anything that you
Okay,
advertise.
I have my email. I guess that would
Okay,
be the good
all
one.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and just.
To contact me, my email address is
Do you have a website or?
no, I don't yet.
Okay. Do you work with different like historic legend type of groups around the area?
Well, we've formed a group of 3 ladies called
Mhm.
Sisters of the Sage, and we're starting to do some portrayals of women who have something in common, and we've found common ground and things for them, and we just did a performance very successfully at Dangberg Ranch this past August.
Mm-hmm. Very, very nice. So viewers, look out for
Sisters of the Sage.
Sisters of the Sage, up and coming, awesome, awesome group of women. Nice. Well, Cindy, let me ask you, you are an author as well,
Yes, I am.
and you have written things outside of Annie Martin?
Yes, I've written a walking tour of Lone Mountain Cemetery in Carson City.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a very nice book, if I say so myself, on the cemeteries of Carson City and Carson Valley, where I talk about the symbolism of the headstones, and I tell the history of the towns and communities, and then a little bit about the people.
Okay.
And my last book was actually biographies of speakers of the Nevada Assembly.
Is that right?
Yes.
Oh.
And right now, I just actually did get a contract 2 days ago to write a book on the Comstock cemeteries.
Did you really?
Yes.
Isn't that interesting? Well, good luck to
Yes,
you
thank
with
you. Thank you.
that. I've read a couple of her books. They're awesome, awesome.
Thank you.
And can they order books through getting a hold of you on
Yes, yes, they
your
can,
email?
on my
Okay.
email.
Nice, very, very nice.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much, Cindy, for bringing to our program today the wonderful Annie H. Martin and the wonderful Cindy Southerland.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, if you would like to be a guest on Psychic Creations, you can contact me at my website, which is www.sandypsychicstones.com, or at my Facebook page, which is, I think, just Sandie La Nae. Thank you so much for watching Psychic Creations History Series. And remember, history... Okay, wait a minute, I need to say that again. I forgot my line. Okay. Thank you so much for watching Psychic Creations History Series. And remember, history created who we are today.